So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Babet's on its way. What carnage is it going to cause? Well, you're going to have to keep watching this vlog to find out. So guys, why are we getting this weather? Well, it's all to do with polar vortexes and the Gulf Stream. Now, for some reason, the North Pole is having a wee bit of a dicky fit to itself, and the jet stream's dropped and all the polar weather's coming our way. Now, what we call this is a Scandinavian block. Now, the weather coming up from the Gulf Stream hits a Scandinavian block, and all it can do is turn, and it turns directly into the east coast, and this is why we're getting storm Babet. So we're down to check the Lynsey B. This is the side that you didn't rarely see, you didn't hear about for fishermen, but we've got to check the boats when the weather's like this, because it's unprecedented weather, it really is. With this size tide, with the moon being as full as it is, I'm on 20 hours now and I'm absolutely knackered, but I've still got another couple of hours yet to sit with the boat to make sure she's going to sit okay with the top of the tide. You know, to shove her off, Paul?
You get a lot of it. Fucking like you had a couple of folk who shove her off, I could tighten the stern rope and try to back a bit.
Aye.
Spend the money planting daffodils or something.
Ah, you're no wrong, mate, you're no wrong. And then they've not got a budget to do proper stuff. That is a big tide. Later on. That's better. That's better. I never thought we'd get the Cygnus roll in the Harbour, mate. So guys, during Storm Babet, our Broadhaven, which is the sea defences in the middle of the harbours, was actually destroyed by the size of swell and the tides. Now, what does that mean for the boats inside the harbour? Well, we don't have a safe haven anymore because of the size of the swell that was running through. The footage that was shown was unbelievable. All the guys actually had to come down and sit with their boats during the height of the tide because the boats were just dancing and getting thrown about like rag dolls. Even our Lynsey B was getting ragged. We were having the Cygnus roll in the harbour, which I've never experienced before. But we're one of the lucky ones. A few of the boats didn't actually make it. So that just shows you the power of the sea, guys. These boulders that are at the Broadhaven are over tons each, and Babet just swept them away just like a swish of their hand. So unbelievable. So ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we have got our special guest back, young Rowan. You've seen him in last week's vlog, and he's here to tell us a little bit about a little accident that happened during Storm Babet. Rowan, what exactly happened to your Spitfire when Babet was on actually?
So we were lying in the berth back a bit, and we were getting bashed about quite a bit. So my granddad suggested to move forward one, and Callum Thompson often kindly moved out the way for us. He was happy to do that, and he moved his boat out the way.
Yeah.
So we moved up the slip a wee bit, as you can see behind. We moved up the slip a wee bit to try and stop the surge, but it didn't work.
What actually happened?
So the time that the tide came in, obviously the ropes ended up getting covered with the water, so we couldn't untie them, and we were getting pulled out and sucked in just with the force of the water hitting the old harbour back wall.
So how did we get the surge?
So the surge was caused by partly the old harbour wall being damaged, and some of the surge was coming through the bridge as well, which was pushing the boat off and onto the branders, which loosened the bolts in the wall.
Oh dear. This doesn't sound good.
And then, so I was watching the branders, and obviously I couldn't do anything because, as I say, the water was above the ropes, so we couldn't untie them. So I had to just watch them getting bashed about, and I tried everything I could. I tied a rope round them to keep them up straight.
Yeah.
The first one, which was the aft one, that decided to go at a funny angle, and I managed to get a rope round the top of it, and I pulled it up straight.
Good thinking.
After I done that, the top 2 boats gave way, and
Isn't that the thing?
the first one just disappeared straight under the water, just went, and I phoned my granddad up. This was at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, by the way, and got him out his bed and said, look, we're going to have to move out of here because we've just broke the branders off the wall. So in the process of me phoning my granddad, the second one, which was the front brander, the bolts gave way at the bottom of that, and again I tried to get a rope round it to keep it straight. This time I tried to tie it round the ladder head instead of keeping a hold of it on the boat, because I realised that the boat was moving all the time and I was moving with the rope. So I decided to try and tie the brander off to the ladder head, but the sea was just the surge was just too strong, and I was getting battered off the ladder itself. So next minute, second one went just straight down under the boat. And then, so about 15-20 minutes after that, as I say, I couldn't do anything because the ropes were tied and the water was over the top of the ropes. About 15-20 minutes after that, a big wave came over the harbour wall and washed all John's creels straight off the slip, right into the back of the boat. At this point, where I had loads of floating rope at the back of the boat, so I was like, this has just went from bad to worse, to the point where it was very dangerous in moving the boat at that point. So then we had no choice to wait on the tide to turn, and on the ebb we managed to get the floating rope back onto the quayside. None of the creels, thankfully, came off the slip, but majority of the creels were just a total mess along the edge of the slip. Managed to get the ropes loosened as the tide went, because it was too dangerous to stay there just in case the boat came down on top of the branders.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And I had a big fear of the brander going through the bottom of the boat. So this is when we chose to move the boat, and we moved it to where it's lying now. But then we had to wait on the tide completely ebbed to low water, and we managed to clamp down in the mud, and we managed to get a rope to the branders that came off the wall. They were lying on the seabed. They actually lay perfectly fine, one on top of each other, which I was quite surprised about, but it was like IKEA flat pack. Managed to get a rope to them, and kindly Thompson's came down and lifted them out the harbour for us. So.
Thompson's is our local contractors, guys, that actually help repair the harbour when we're in an hour of need. And as you can hear, it's a chain of events that happened to poor Rowan here in the Spitfire. But that's what happens when storms hit. It's not just the storm itself you have to contend with, it's everything else going on round about it. There was the swell, there was the size of the tide, there was the loose fittings on the branders itself, the hefty weight of the Spitfire itself, because she's a big old girl, and these factors turned into a nightmare for poor Rowan here. Right, ladies and gentlemen, what you're going to see is not for the faint-hearted. This is it's a deal breaker for a fisherman, it really is. Roll the clip, Jeff.
Wherever it goes. Wherever she goes.
So what you just saw was one of Dunbar's fishermen's vessel getting sunk by Storm Babet. What actually happened was they were in Port Seaton, which is a harbour 10-15 miles away from Dunbar, up the 34th, so they should have been sheltered Unfortunately, the direction had changed on the swell and they were getting ragged silly. There was breakages, they were breaking parts of their boats, so they decided to run to Granton for safe haven, which is even further up the Firthy Forth. And they had tied up, and unfortunately they were just going back for some more ropes because they kept breaking ropes with the size of the swell, and unfortunately what you just saw was the result. Now what I'm going to say, seeing a boat do that is like watching a death in the family. It really is, because it's not just the boat that's sunk. Everything you've put into that boat has sunk. There's no way for your family to make money now, all because that boat is now gone. So Fiona, as a harbour master, what do you have to do to prepare for any storms coming?
Well, to be honest, preparing for storms is an all year round task for the harbour and for the Harbour Trust. We're lucky here that we've got a really good board of trustees, and we're very attentive to all the small jobs and keeping the harbour walls in one piece. So lots of pointing, lots of little repairs, so when the storm does hit, we can be in as good shape as possible. The hardest bit I think is getting funding, so we rely on Scottish Government, Marine Scotland to fund some of the bigger jobs. So that's probably the bigger picture. And then sort of day to day, you know, fishermen are well ahead of us in terms of what the weather's doing. So I'm not worried about them looking after their boats. I might worry about some of the smaller boats, making sure that the public are safe and the harbour's clean and tidy and the gates are shut for the North Wall. So lots of little jobs, but the big picture is all about shoring us up permanently.
The little jobs make the big jobs. That's the beauty about it. You know what I mean? If you've got the little jobs squared away, then the big jobs are easy. So talking about visitors coming to the harbour and all the rest of it, obviously when the storms are on, the waves are beautiful, but they're deadly, as we know. However, the visitors aren't so clever as what we are. What advice would you give them to view waves like that?
I mean, it's a great question, because the waves, they're dramatic, we all love them, and it's mesmerising, but and beautiful at the same time. The power of the sea is awesome here, but the visitors do need to stay back. We do our best. We'll close off over the bridge if we have to, or we'll put signs up or cones up, but we're relying on common sense.
Common sense, you're relying on that.
Not everybody has it in the same measure, but you know, people do need to be sensible. I know we all want that wonderful Instagram shot or something a bit different, but you know, your personal safety must come first. And obviously if something bad was to happen and the lifeboat crew or Coast Guard had to come and get you, then it's everybody else's safety. You know, and I'm very pleased after this latest storm that we didn't have any serious accidents involving boats or people from a commercial point of view. So thankfully. So obviously Stone Babet made a rather big hole in our Broadhaven. What's the process of actually getting that repaired? Well, we're lucky we have a great relationship with AGT Thompson, you know, in Spot Road here in Dunbar. So first step was really to give them a call. They'll hopefully be able to come down. The machine is already here to start rebuilding it. But there's a bit of assessment to do first. So obviously the stone itself is very expensive. It's not easy to handle. So they'll have to assess where all the big pieces of stone are lying and how to safely build that back up. And access at low tides is still going to be a bit tricky for them. So it'll be as fast as we can do it, but in small stages, I reckon. Oh dear. What happens if there's another storm comes in between? Well, that's it, batten down the hatches, everyone.
Once again.
I mean, as you're aware, and I think you've shown it in some of your videos, because the breakwater isn't working properly, then there is a strong current that blows into that old harbour, and it does make the boats bounce around more than we would like. So lots of vigilance in the meantime, and there's nothing we can do. You know, there's no.
That's it. It's nature. It's going to take control no matter what you do.
Exactly. So, and it's not the first time I think that the breakwater suffered damage. It is what it is. So we'll fix it as quick as we can. Well,
a few years. In fact, it was last year. You put the big boulders in at the right hand side of the. Why did they not take it all the way across? Was it the lack of funding again? Was it?
I'm not sure actually. I think probably a bit of both. So depending on the wind direction, I think it was always that east side that used to suffer the damage, and the height of it was better to protect the boats that sit along the wall.
Yeah.
So that's where the big boulders went. But I suppose this has been slightly unusual in that we've lost the other side of the breakwater.
But they're saying that every year now. You get once in a lifetime storms, but these once in a lifetime storms are getting worse.
I think that's definitely true. I think and earlier, you know, this is only beginning of November now, and we've had some terrible October weather. So I think there's a lot to learn from all of that.
Oh, definitely. The sea's always teaching, and it's up to us to listen.
Yeah, it's very humbling. Very
for
humbling.
sure.
Definitely.
Well, Fiona, thank you very much for talking to us and the viewers at home, and we will look forward to having another information conflab in another vlog, hopefully very soon indeed.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. It's been great.
You're more than welcome. So guys, after Storm Babet, a lot of fishermen have lost a lot of gear, if not everything. And why is that? Because of the size of groundswell it was. Because it came from the east, which has got plenty of time to get to land because the weather started way off in Switzerland, Norway area. And everybody tried their best to get into deep water to do what they could to save their gear. However, because of the size of groundswell, now what do I mean by groundswell? For those that you don't know about groundswell, it's basically the swell is that bad that it actually churns the bottom up like a tractor ploughing a field. That's exactly what a groundswell will do, and creels have no chance. And because the guys all went out into deep water, all they did was bowl into each other. Now, they got a lull between Storm Babet and the next storm, which was only one day, to get as much gear as they could in for that day. However, some of the guys couldn't even get their gear up because there was too many fleets of creels balled into each other. Now, what can the guys do now? Well, since Babet, we've had another storm, and then there's another storm due after that one, so they're not going to get a chance to get their gear. So a lot of the gear's been washed up on the beach, and what has been washed up on the beach is non-salvageable. They might be able to get spinners, eyes off it, but that's about it. Some rope, maybe. So for smaller businesses, in fact even bigger businesses, this is a huge hit. Some of the guys are actually selling up because they can't face it no more. Babet's wiped them out. They have no backup gear. They can't afford backup gear because the price of everything has went through the roof. And it's a damn shame. And what I want to know is, after all this, where's the help from the government? Fishermen don't get help from the government, and that's what we need. We need some sort of reassurance that we're going to be looked after, because, like I say, these fishermen are generation after generation. They sell up. There's nobody left to come and take this mantle. That's why I do this channel, because once I'm finished, there's no one else to pass this on to. So guys, what happened in Storm Babet to our creels? Well, they actually shifted. I couldn't believe it. I put them on the pier, and I put them far enough back from the edge of the pier, but when I went down to checking them the next again day from the major part of the storm, oh my, they had actually moved about 2 feet, and it was most of the way up the creels. Now, creels on dry land are very heavy indeed, especially my metal ones. Like I say, 25 kilograms for these steel ones, and they were piled up to my head height. You've seen in the last vlog, they had moved at least 2 feet. I couldn't believe it myself. So what I did was I says, well, enough's enough. If this is going to be what the winter's before us, then I'm taking this lot up to the farm for safekeeping. Right guys, that was some vlog, wasn't it? It certainly was that. That was unprecedented, that weather that you just saw. So in conclusion of that, it's going to get worse. I reckon this winter is going to be a doozy. This polar vortex that's happening, I reckon we're going to get storm after storm after storm. Let's hope I'm wrong, especially for everybody that's still working. And in saying that, I'm going to do what's right by my vessel, right by my gear, because I've got no backups, and we've decided that we're going to pull Lynsey B out the water for the winter. Now, like I say, normally I do not do this, but these are unprecedented times. The weather seems to be taking control this winter, so I'm going to listen to it and I'm going to do the right thing by my business. So guys, if you like this vlog, please give it a thumbs up, please write a comment below if you have any questions, and please subscribe to the channel, which is always very helpful indeed. Once you've subscribed, tick that notification bell and YouTube will do all the work for you to let you know when we've got our next vlog out. Until your next vlog, my friends, all the very best. Stay safe, my friends.